Stephen Milhausen here from DAZN.
Wait, stop. Check out that pocket square. Look at that.
Whoa!
Okay. 3, 2, 1. Now go.
3, 2, 1. We'll go against Stephen Milhausen here from DAZN. It is Cinco de Mayo, May the 5th. 2 days away from the big SmackDown. Go big this Friday night on Fox. 8 Eastern, 7 Central, and 5 Pacific. He is the special counsel to the tribal chief, the head of the table, the reigning, defending Universal Champion, Roman Reigns, the one and only Paul Heyman. And Paul, that's square, my friend. Looking sharp today.
Sharp every day. I'm special counsel to the tribal chief. We don't do things second class around here.
Now I feel a little underdressed here. I got a 1 championship hat on. I got an Under Armour hoodie, a 40th birthday balloon, and a bunch of memorabilia behind me. I feel underdressed.
Nobody's tuning in to see you.
You sure? I'm the guy around here, supposedly. That's what Drew McIntyre told me yesterday.
Drew McIntyre likes to smooch the tuchus of media so that they write nice things about him, especially in comparison to Roman Reigns, who is the champion in WWE, despite what anybody on Raw thinks. So no matter what Drew McIntyre's goals are, it's always going to be, let's be nice to the media, so the media is nice to Drew McIntyre.
So you don't like being nice to guys like us?
I just don't know why I have to hype SmackDown. To be real honest with you, I don't know why my task during the week is to hype SmackDown, because I really think SmackDown hypes itself. You want to hype SmackDown? Here's all the hype you need. This Friday, Roman Reigns, the tribal chief, the end-all be-all, the head of the table, the GOAT, the greatest of all time, the reigning, defending, uncontroverted, undisputed WWE Universal Heavyweight Champion will be live, no net on SmackDown. That's all the hype you need. That's it. That's the reason to tune in. There's no other thing that I can say that can hype anybody up more than that. You get to witness Roman Reigns live. What more do you need?
We need you. We need you holding the title, Paul.
First
you do a great job holding that title and cutting those promos.
I only hold the title at the behest and the command of my boss, the tribal chief, Roman Reigns, number one. And number two, I'm part of the package. So when you get the tribal chief, the special counsel is along his side.
You said something very intriguing, and I agree with you 100%. You look at where SmackDown's at ever since you and Roman, and then with Jey Uso, you guys aligned together. The show's been on another level. It's been, not even you saying this, I've talked to people in the company and I've said the same thing, that just, it's the best show right now in all of WWE, the best show in all of wrestling. And what is it about you and Roman together? It just seems like you had that magic with Brock, you had that magic with Punk, but it just seems like you with Roman Reigns is just right now on a completely different level.
I had the run of a lifetime with Brock Lesnar, and what we accomplished in our 8 years since we returned in 2012, let alone what we accomplished in the 18 years since 2002. And that includes writing a book together. That includes Brock's run in UFC. Many would make the valid claim what would be impossible to top. A near 600-day run as champion, multiple world titles, and the single biggest victory in the history of WWE, which was Brock Lesnar conquering The Undertaker's undefeated streak at WrestleMania 30. To top that, to compete with that, to follow that is an impossible task. It can't be done, but that's the goal. That's the vision of where we want to take Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns also was at a point in his career, 4 WrestleMania main events, scheduled for 5, multiple world championship runs on top since the day he started on the main roster. What was left for Roman Reigns to accomplish except the status of the undisputed, uncontroverted GOAT? And that is the driving force. That's the ambition. That's the vision. That's the desire. That's the dream. That's the craving. That's the lust. That's the seduction. That's the lure. That is the goal. Every single solitary micro moment that you see both the character and the man, Roman Reigns, unfold in front of your eyes. And that was the only thing that could put me back in front of the camera after my run with Brock Lesnar. Because to me, it would be, again, if I'm not with someone that is driven by the ambition of accomplishing the impossible, then it was time to call it a day.
Yeah.
But that's Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns wants to top everything he's done since he debuted on the main roster. Roman Reigns wants to accomplish and top everything that was done by Bruno Sammartino, Hulk Hogan, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, The Undertaker, you name it. Ric Flair, combine them all, stack them high. And Roman Reigns wants to go to a level all of them together could not achieve. That's the goal. Every single solitary micro moment you see him on camera. And that's a level of ambition that I strive for as well. So it's an honor and a privilege and a pleasure to collaborate with such a vision.
You know, we've talked, me and you have talked through DMs and after some episodes of SmackDown in the last 6 months, and just about how great you've been doing and how great Roman is doing. And you bring it up about him getting to that other level, getting to be the GOAT. Where do you feel he needs to go? What does he need to do, or how long does he need to get to that, like you said, like that Bruno, the Hogans, the Rocks, the Austins? How long do you think he needs to get to that level in this current run?
I think you're seeing it every Friday on SmackDown. If you take a look at the evolution of the persona since he returned at the end of August, and you watch how at the beginning every word was intentional, every movement had a purpose during his promos, in that we were starting to reveal the dynamic of who this actual human being is. And then as we got into the rivalry with Jey Uso, and you started to understand he's not just the tribal chief, he's the head of the table. And why is he the head of the table? And the explanation of how he feeds not just his own immediate family, how he is responsible for the entire Anawa'i Fatu dynasty, how he takes care of everybody, how everyone relies on him, and what that pressure, indeed that burden must be on a man, and how the championship is a must, not just a prop, not just something for me or him to hold, not just the token that is demonstrative of being the main event, the top attraction in the promotion, but how it is a tool by which he can demonstrate to the world that he is the WrestleMania main event, the champion, the attraction in all of WWE, indeed sports entertainment. And then as we got into the Kevin Owens situation, and you start to see the sheer savagery of his ambition and why that ambition plays out into the psyche and how it plays out into the psyche of the persona, the character, and the man known as Roman Reigns. And then you get to the WrestleMania main event, and he's against Edge, who's a Hall of Famer, Daniel Bryan, who's a first ballot Hall of Famer, and the fact that he then not only defeats them both, but he stacks them in the most declaratively dominant pinfall in the history of WrestleMania main events. Every moment that you see Roman Reigns on television, you are witnessing a character, a persona, and a human being accomplish that vision of going to a level never achieved by San Martino, Hogan, Austin, Rock, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, John Cena, Ric Flair, etc., etc., etc. You're witnessing it every single time. You're not only seeing another layer evolve, you're seeing another layer get pulled back at the very same time. And the strength from which he demonstrates this greatness is at the very same time, and quite compelling and riveting, a very vulnerable moment, because he's revealing another side of himself to the public that is authentic, that is genuine, that is really himself, the human being. And it's fascinating to watch.
Who's more fascinating to watch? I mean, you can only pick one, Paul. Brock or Roman?
It would be like asking who revolutionized, indeed evolutionized, both sports and sports entertainment more, Brock Lesnar or Ronda Rousey. And you can't make the comparison because their platforms are different. The goals for Brock Lesnar were much different than the goals for Roman Reigns. The platform for Brock Lesnar was different than the platform for Roman Reigns. It's to the point where we're not only in completely different presentations, we're almost in completely different industries here.
Yeah.
So while I am admittedly avoiding answering the question, the reason why I'm avoiding answering the question is that no answer could do what you're asking justice, because it's a completely different dynamic with Brock Lesnar than it was with Roman Reigns, in the same way of saying, well, how did Brock Lesnar transition from college wrestling to WWE, then from WWE to UFC, and from UFC to WWE?
Yeah.
And then you look at Ronda Rousey and how she put women's MMA on the map and made it on par with men's MMA, main eventing in Strikeforce, main eventing in UFC. How is that possible?
Yeah.
So it's just a completely different dynamic. It's saying, well, who was greater, Michael Jordan or Babe Ruth? You can't really answer it. The dynamic is different.
You know, I asked Drew McIntyre this question yesterday, and I'll pose the same question to you. We talked about near the end about WrestleMania 38 next year being at AT&T Stadium in Dallas, Texas. And, you know, you look at 100,000 people. I'm going to be there this weekend for the big Canelo Alvarez fight. They're packing 70,000 people, and you expect by next year it'll be around 100,000 for Mania. I feel the biggest match right now in WWE would be Roman Reigns, Drew McIntyre, for whichever title. They don't even have to really be a title on the line, just considering the magnitude of both guys at this point. Do you feel, Paul, right now that is the biggest match to make in WWE?
Don't know because there's a lot of different variables that can happen. You take a well, first of all, if it's right now, this very moment, it's a huge attraction. I also would submit to you after what Roman Reigns just did at this year's WrestleMania. If you hear that there's a WrestleMania, which by the way will star Roman Reigns, because he is the star of WrestleMania, and he certainly demonstrated that this year, I'd buy a ticket. How could you not?
Yeah.
After the most declaratively dominant pinfall in the history of WrestleMania main events, what is Roman Reigns going to do to top that at next year's WrestleMania? Because he's going to have to top it. He's going to have to. That is who that character, the persona, and the man are.
Yeah.
So, at this moment, yes, it'd be a huge match with Drew McIntyre. It'd be a huge match against Bobby Lashley. Right now, 100,000 tickets to see Roman Reigns, I would have no qualms just saying, ladies and gentlemen, we're putting tickets on sale right now, this moment, for next year's WrestleMania. 100,000 tickets are available. If that doesn't sell out in an hour, then people miss the press release. Because if you know that Roman Reigns is in the main event of next year's WrestleMania, and Roman Reigns will be in the main event of next year's WrestleMania, and that's not a prediction, that's a spoiler. He is worthy of that ticket purchase.
I want to ask you this, because it seems like the direction right now is from the end of SmackDown this week looks like Roman and Cesaro, and Cesaro's been on a great run this year. You had a run with him in the past when he won the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. Can you talk about Cesaro's evolution from that moment to right now?
Yes, Cesaro is ready, willing, able, and the audience is willing to accept Cesaro stepping into the spotlight. The bad news for Cesaro is he's exactly where Roman Reigns was a few years ago, which was the right guy in the right place at the wrong time.
Yeah.
Cesaro is at the top of his game, and he deserves this spotlight.
Yeah.
That is one magnificent athlete. I think Cesaro was the right guy in the right place at the wrong time before in history. And that's when he was with me. Because the reason Cesaro was put with me was not to make Cesaro a main event player. It was the day after WrestleMania 30. It was the day after Brock Lesnar conquered the streak. And with Brock Lesnar taking a hiatus, we needed a platform from which Paul Heyman could advocate my client, Brock Lesnar, conquered The Undertaker's undefeated streak at WrestleMania. Because the biggest box office that WWE could accomplish was the rematch between Brock Lesnar and The Undertaker. Whether that took 6 months, a year, or a year and a half, which it ended up taking. That was absolutely undisputed, uncontroverted, the match to go to. And in order to build it up, you needed the advocate repeating those words ad nauseum. My client, Brock Lesnar, conquered The Undertaker's undefeated streak at WrestleMania. But what reason did I have to be on television without Brock Lesnar available to show up on Mondays? So by having Cesaro, I had an excuse to be on television. So that was Cesaro's role. Cesaro was a supporting player in the ongoing saga between Brock Lesnar and The Undertaker. That's unfortunate for Cesaro, but in terms of big box office, that was his role.
Yeah.
Now, years later, Cesaro is ready for a title. And while I love having him on SmackDown and can't imagine what Raw could offer SmackDown in terms of a trade, Cesaro's only hope of being the champion of a brand is to go to Raw. Because he's not taking that title away from Brock Lesnar, from Roman Reigns. He's just not. He's just not. It's not going to happen. Now, Cesaro wants to set his sights on the Intercontinental title. I happen to like the champion Apollo Crews. Okay, then Cesaro has a fighting chance there. That's an interesting matchup. But there's no one at Roman Reigns' level right now. Just no one. There's no two men. Hey, WrestleMania was supposed to be a triple threat. Yeah. A Hall of Famer Edge, a guaranteed Hall of Famer Daniel Bryan. How many world championships between the two of them? And it ended up being a handicap match. And Roman Reigns stacked them and pinned them both. There's no one on Roman Reigns' level. And that includes, unfortunately, for a man who would be unquestionably the top star in WWE at the moment, Cesaro. But Cesaro's not on Roman Reigns' level. It's just not going to happen.
Well, and with this, and you said something right at the end that I felt very intriguing. No one on his level. I'll pose a guy to you, a guy you know very well, from the University of Minnesota. Right now, up in Canada on his tractor, not having a care in the universe. What if the big guy, Mr. Brock Lesnar, what if Brock came back, Paul, and he wants to insert himself to be involved with the tribal chief, the reigning, defending, undisputed Universal Champion?
You know, I always hate when people say to me, that's an interesting question or that's an interesting answer, because it means that the other questions that I asked or the answers that I gave are not interesting.
Your answers are already awesome, but a good reporter, Paul, and you notice you've talked to a good friend of ours, Ariel Helwani, numerous times, and Richard Deutsch, a guy we both know as well, and got to pick up on cues like that.
I respect Richard tremendously, and I would respect Ariel tremendously if he would stop with his sycophantic infatuation with Daniel Cormier.
I'll text Ariel that when we're done.
But I wasn't criticizing my own questions or answers. I was just saying I find that your question's very interesting.
Thank you.
The problem that I have with your question is that you're welcome. Is that it's based on a hypothetical. And my father, who was a far smarter man than I will ever be, which is a testament to my father. My father used to have a saying: if your aunt had balls, she'd be your uncle. She doesn't, so she's not. If Brock Lesnar were to return, if it's a hypothetical,
yeah,
Brock Lesnar does what Brock Lesnar wants to do. You know how you can be cognizant of the fact that Brock Lesnar does not want to challenge Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship, or at least not yet, because he hasn't done it. Because if Brock Lesnar wanted to, it would have happened already. And it hasn't happened already because he doesn't want to. Now, there may be reasons why he doesn't want to, and that's for Brock Lesnar to reveal. If Brock Lesnar ever decides to reveal it, the man doesn't tweet.
No.
He doesn't post pictures on Instagram. He's not a public persona. He's a very private beast. And he does enjoy being on his tractor and on his combine, and the man loves the farm. And if Brock Lesnar ever decides to appear in public, it'll be when Brock Lesnar wants to appear in public, because Brock Lesnar does what Brock Lesnar wants to do. And by the way, to this moment, as far as I know, the aunt still doesn't have balls. She's not my uncle.
I don't know how I can't go any farther. We will end with that. Go big. SmackDown this coming Friday night, live on Fox, 8 Eastern, 7 Central, 5 Pacific. He is the special counsel to the tribal chief, the head of the table, the reigning, defending, undisputed Universal Champion.
Uncontroverted. Uncontroverted.
Uncontroverted. I don't hear that word often, Paul. Uncontroverted.
Raising, defending, undisputed, uncontroverted. WWE, because you got to brand. You got to brand it.
That always brand.
WWE Universal, which is bigger than World, heavyweight champion.
You catch Paul and Roman and Jey Uso Friday night on Smack.
Please give Roman top billing.
I did.
No, you said Paul and Roman.
Well, we're talking Paul, so that was
you catch the tribal chief Roman Reigns and his special counsel Paul Heyman and his right-hand man, main event Jey Uso, I might add. This Friday live on SmackDown. Live, no net. It's a dangerous situation, especially for Cesaro.
You know, we've talked on DM in the last 6 months or so, Paul. We've talked a few times about Heyman. I was telling Mark this. We've been talking, me and you've been talking about having this conversation. So I'm glad me and you finally got to have it. So thank you so much for the time, Paul. It's definitely been my honor and pleasure. And I look forward to seeing you Friday night on SmackDown.
Indeed, you should.
Thanks, Paul. Have a good one.
Thanks.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Mark.